This event was put on by the Career Alumni Relations Committee and Communication Council. Oh wait, is there anyone here from German? The German Council?
Sure.
Okay, I'm just making sure. And because they were supposed to be here also, maybe. But they're not, and we are. So basically this is the first in a lecture series, and we're lucky enough to have pterry here, who's actually a University of Texas alum in advertising department, which is very cool. And I'm sure all of you have had his burgers and had one last weekend. So without further ado, Mr. pterry.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. You know, it's a big deal for me to get to talk about the restaurant. So I'm actually I'm really honored to be here and to visit. Since this is a school of communications, I thought what we do is start with communication and how I did this as a restaurant. And before I do that, I want to give you some sense of where I came from, because I remember coming to one of these things when I was at UT in the advertising department. And they brought in this guy. He had nothing to do with my major, but it was like the coolest thing ever. He was a producer on, remember the old Mary Tyler Moore show, or Nick at Night, I don't know which one. But he was his producer, and he had gone to UT and somehow magically transformed himself to Hollywood, and you know, his name was on the credits. After I heard him speak, you could go watch it on TV and see his name. Actually, kind of the same name as the Facebook guy, Mark, similar to that. Anyway, and I was just like, okay, how did you do that? You know, how did that happen? Because right now, you know, I spent my first year at Jester. I'm still not over that. And you know, and I'm trying to find my way, and I'm trying to get a sense of what's out there and what I want to do. And so I think it might give you some information to let you know how things occur. And I'm not sure I recommend it in my path, but it was just mine. So I went to school here, and I got an advertising degree. And my dad was in television. He ran a TV station. And so I had some familiarity with advertising in a small sense. So it was something I kind of fit into. And I got really lucky because I'd always had these jobs in the summer, and I was kind of an entrepreneur to a degree. And so I had a little book of jobs that I had done, businesses I had started. And somehow that got me a job in advertising in Dallas. And that was a really hard job to get. The industry has changed dramatically, and I won't bore you with it all. But back then, see, that's really dangerous. If my wife were here, she would just be praying that I would fall. And that still might happen, because of my memory, I'll forget that this is here. Anyway, so I got this interview, and I went into Dallas, and I interviewed for an advertising job, and I had set up a bunch of interviews, and I got one. And it turned out to be probably the best thing in my life, because I was 22, and it was called Tracy Locke, and it merged with BBDO, and it's actually still around. And it was a great advertising agency at the time. It was really, really cool. It had I worked on the Ben Hogan golf account. I worked on Frito-Lay. I worked on Phillips 66, the gas stations, and I was a suit. I was an assistant account executive, and I became an account executive after a couple of years. And so I got to hang out with creative people, and I got a sense of how it all works. And if you talk to somebody in advertising, and they you tell them that the pterry started out in an ad agency, they'll probably nod their head and go, okay, now I get it. Because a lot of what I learned there transforms into my business, and really a lot of my life. But all the gruesome stories about advertising, I don't know, are all true. It's absolutely the most cutthroat, dirty business, at least it was at the time. I don't know what it's like now. And it wasn't my agency, it was really, really cutthroat. And I just was kind of like this spring lamb that didn't really understand how you could say one thing to a person and turn around and say something else. Against my nature. So, but I got my 3 years in, which was longer than a lot of people because it was a tough business. And I moved on, and I went from there. I did a really quick stint. I've always wanted, and this is, I hope this is important to you. I've always wanted to be in the restaurant business. So whatever it is you've always wanted to be in, I kind of recommend you keep that in the back of your mind, even if it isn't something you can do right away. Because I don't know how you guys feel, but I felt like I had to get out there and do something. And I had to do it really quick. And I had to just run full force. And it's not true. It's not right. It's not true. There's lots of time. There's lots of time. Now, it doesn't mean you should go screw around, for 10 years. I don't recommend that. Because the truth of the matter is, if you are trying to get a job, if you're trying to be employed, the employer is looking at what you've done, where you are in your life. And if an employer sees, 5 years of not doing much, it's a red flag. So understand if you say, well, I took a year off, I traveled to Europe, I went to, Central America, I saw the Great Wall of China. Everyone, anybody worth his salt is nodding their head going, okay, that's cool. That's cool. You learned something. I mean, he went out and did that. But if it's, well, I hung out with my buddy, and just kind of, there are all those flags. And frankly, as an employer, I can tell you, when someone comes in to work for me, I know in about 30 seconds. I know in about 30 seconds. And so a lot of that is communication. A lot of that is how you present yourself. And I don't know what you're learning in school, and I'm not, I know that the truth of the matter is what you're doing today at university, I think, is that you're saying to yourself, this is my task. I'm taking 12 hours, I've got these classes, I'm asked to study, I'm asked to learn this, I'm graded on this, and your grade is how well you succeed. It's that simple. Now, whether you take that with you, that knowledge with you, means anything to you in the future, maybe yes, maybe no, but the fact of the matter is that you were given an assignment and asked to fulfill it. And if you can't do that here, you can't do it out there. It's that simple. It's probably not that simple. But if the reason is, if things don't change with you, then it probably is that simple. In other words, I was lazy back then, but I'm not lazy now. Oh, okay, well, good. So now you'll be able to do it. But that's a whole other world, because that's growth and development. But I really think that's I think a lot of that with school is, with going to school, is the task at hand and succeeding at that task. And so I was able to, from there, I kind of had a crazy life, and it's all been really cool. But I wanted back, so I'm in Dallas, and I'm working at this restaurant, and it was called, it was owned by TGI Fridays, and it was called Adults. Anyway, I wanted to manage, I wanted to learn the business, and I got there and I really learned really quickly. I didn't want to learn with these guys. Because restaurant business can be really, really nasty. It just sometimes attracts a different crowd. And anyway, what my deal? And so then I decided my deal was I wanted to get back to Austin. And I got a phone call because I'm one of those guys that I don't have this Rolodex, but I make a friend, and I'm pretty good about keeping that friend, and I'm a pretty good friend, and so I've got friends. And so I got a phone call from a friend, and I got a chance to move back to Oxford, and I work for the state.